Welcome everybody, we are live and I am in the courtyard, the inner courtyard of London's newest 5-star deluxe hotel, the Peninsula London. And we have got our annual London sale taking place here for the first time. We've got a few cars in this courtyard. As you can see, a couple of Porsches over there, Bentley and an Aston Martin. But most of our cars are in an underground car park, and we're going to do the auction in a ballroom, which is also 4 floors underneath the ground. So I'm about to go. Well, we're going to walk into the lobby now. One of the lobbies. Got a Williams Formula One car in here. You all right, Johnny? So we've got a Williams FW20, driven by Jacques Villeneuve, I believe. Yes, has Villeneuve's name on the side. That's going to be offered for sale in our Paris sale. And we are going to go downstairs because I'm going to be doing the live broadcast with Felix and Will. But first, before we do that, watch this. It's an opportunity for us to talk about all manner of things. So we're talking about the market, we're talking about the cars we love, the cars we don't love. We try and deliver it with a bit of humour.
I know what you're going to say.
All you get with the Ferrari is 12 cylinders more of anxiety, isn't it? I mean,
Largely.
Speaking as an owner. Yeah.
Some of our jokes are terrible. And of course, we have some special guests. We also did a special episode from the Mercedes Museum in Stuttgart. That recording was done shortly after we had sold the Mercedes 300 SLR Uhlenhaut Coupe, which was sold for 135 million euros.
What?
Imagine going to a park with 2 or 3 friends, and that's exactly the way we try and do these podcasts.
Cheers.
Mind a beer now. Welcome everybody to the Peninsula Hotel. Sorry, I'm going to have to inject more energy into my delivery because we've just been watching a trailer and I've been caught a little bit by surprise, gents, if is the honest truth. Welcome, Will, Felix, podcast regulars. So this is live. We are in the ballroom at the Peninsula Hotel. The Peninsula is, they had their official opening party a few months ago, didn't they? Which was very...
invite.
Cool. Would we be invited to that? It's rich and famous, Felix.
No, I know.
And
Poor and unknown.
the poor, yeah. Were you parking the cars? But it's a spectacular hotel, and so this is a very different venue for us in London. We're still working in partnership with the Royal Automobile Club. We're still sponsors of the London to Brighton run, which starts tomorrow in Hyde Park, and we'll talk a little bit more about that probably a bit later on. But gents, we have an amazing sale, don't we?
We do.
We're underground. We're 4 stories underground.
Yes.
Oddly, and this is what I keep getting wrong, because I keep saying to people, let's go down to the car park.
Yes.
And it's above us.
Car park is 2 floors above us.
Imagine the excavation exercise this is not a small room and we're 4 floors down. The amount of dirt that they must have excavated out of this incredible site.
Apparently, when they constructed the hotel, there is an entire level of this hotel,
Yes.
which is unpurposed. It's not anything. It's just spare. So if the hotel needs to expand, there's an entire level that they can expand into.
Not below.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's
I don't
unlike
know.
any hotel I've ever seen or been to.
But we've got cars out on the street.
Yes.
We've got cars in the courtyard. We've got some of the biggest value cars in this ballroom.
Yes.
And then you go to an elevator in the corner of the room over there. You go up 2 floors, still underground, obviously, to a car park, and we've got most of the cars there.
Yeah.
So, cool, eh?
It's great.
It's really cool.
I think it's the best London venue we've ever had. And I think that feedback from the clients is basically that this is the finest venue we've secured for the London sale ever. So
It's fine venue and fine cars. 250 Lusso there, 275 Ferrari, I've got a screen I can't see, but we've got an XKSS. We're going to talk about that a bit later. F40, Delahaye, we're going to talk about that. We've got a Gullwing. We've got a McLaren GTR. We've got this lovely K3 MG behind me. We've got some amazing cars. But as is the style of our live stream, we've selected. So we often say this about the podcast. There's zero prep for the podcast.
Always.
No.
Live stream, just winging it. You don't know what you're going to talk about,
I
do
also
you?
don't know anything about the cars that we're going to talk about.
Oh, for goodness sake, Felix, you're a car specialist.
I know, but not in these ones.
I do actually know a bit about the cars to talk about.
Hang on, there's a Porsche in here.
There is actually. I know.
I thought you know everything about
Yeah.
Porsches, is what you tell people. Now, we, as I said just a moment ago, we are sponsors of the London to Brighton. A 60-mile run. The cars have to be older than 1904. Very old. I think, what are the earliest cars? Sort of 1880s ish.
Yes.
That's that is crazy, isn't it? I think we've all done the London to Brighton. It once took me it took me 7 hours.
Really?
Yeah,
I did it last
because we
year.
basically pushed it.
Flew down last year.
That's much longer than if you rode a bicycle.
Yeah, well, penny farthings get that.
But
got down.
someone does go on a penny farthing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that these guys did that. They're not officially involved in the run, but they just cycle along with the cars. And
How do you?
quite cool.
So for anyone that doesn't know the roads between London and Brighton, in England, there's a range of hills, not mountains, but they're sizable hills called the South Downs. How do you? A penny farthing has no gearing, does it?
I think you just got
How do you
legs
get
like
over?
tree
How
trunks.
do you get over the South Downs on a penny farthing?
Brute force and huge muscles in
People being significantly
quads.
fitter than us. Now,
Yes.
wouldn't it be good if you could buy a car at this auction this afternoon and push it, assuming you've paid for it, of course, drive it to Hyde Park and with an entry and do the London-Brighton tomorrow?
It would be good.
That would be good.
Convenient.
It's mega.
Well, I can tell you something, Felix. There is a car for you. If you have a surplus, let's just say ish, 130 grand, which I wager you do.
Slushing.
But the reason I've particularly chosen this car is because it's called a Haynes.
So it's
It is the de facto seal of quality. In any
the
walk of
Haynes
life.
label.
The Haynes seal of quality. It is a 1902 Haynes Apperson. And it comes with, I mean, this has got amazing history actually, and I am going to have to read my notes because I'm not an expert, but it was in the Harrow collection, very well-known collection, and it's done the London to Brighton lots of times, and more to the point, driven to Brighton by the world's fastest man, Mr. Andy Green.
Yeah.
Who probably became the world's slowest man
For the day.
for the day.
Yeah.
For the day.
But I think you can get 6 people on it. No one really pays attention to seat belts or anything like that. Apparently someone told me a story that someone once fell out of that car on the London-Brighton passing.
Was it Andy Green?
Pass-
Surprised by the performance.
Passing a drink from one car to another, and a guy just fell out of the car. He wasn't driving, and so we don't encourage drink driving, obviously.
No. Well,
but
Felix has fallen out of his golf before now.
I mean, I've got a client actually coming down
Like George
today because he's kind of been swept up in the whole emotion of the London to Brighton run, and the atmosphere and just the culture of it is so cool and so friendly. And we've done the run as we are lucky enough to have done. Your hands get tired from just we have to swap from the amount of waving and smiling, and it's like
I
just
love. I
amazing.
think a lot of people that have never done the London to Brighton and who aren't necessarily veteran car enthusiasts, their default feeling is that it will be the worst day of their life. It's like, what, I've got to get up at 4:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
I've got to go to Hyde Park,
Yeah.
and I've got to drive in a car that does 10 miles per hour, 60 miles, and it's probably going to be raining.
Yeah.
That's all of which is kind of fair enough.
Yeah.
Apart from when you do it and you go,
This is amazing.
I got cold, I got wet, It was really, really slow. I
Yeah.
got up really early. I'm really tired, but that was one of the best days of my life. And it is genuinely, isn't it?
I felt that it was probably the best car event I've ever done.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's always a surprise because there's lots of people do it who don't really have much of maybe they don't have much of an affiliation with those kinds of cars. But the cars are really cool, but it's actually, there's something magical about the event itself because it's, as you say, there's so much on paper that doesn't appeal. You know, if you go outside in November and someone said, would you like someone to accelerate this wind at you? It's not appealing, but it's so amazing and there's so much joy and it's definitively enthusiastic.
Yeah.
And there's no arms race really. And there's the quick cars that get down in 3 hours. But it's just amazing. It doesn't matter what you're in.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
No, and I think I think it's great that this year we've got a few veterans, more than the Haynes, which is eligible. And although we talk a little bit sometimes about the slight decline in the pre-war market because the people that traditionally bought them are sort of dying away and not necessarily being replaced with as many people that are as enthusiastic. The London to Brighton run, actually, it is the foundation of the veteran car market.
It's a growth market.
Yes,
really.
Because you might assume that to buy a car built in 1900 would perhaps not be a very sensible place to put your money because where's the market for those cars going to go? But as long as London to Brighton run exists, there will always be demand for those.
Yeah.
It's an entry ticket to a great event that will not go away.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Good news.
Yeah,
Well, so somebody may well be down in Brighton with that car tomorrow afternoon, having bought it here today. Let's hope so. Now, we're going to move on to something quite a lot newer. Very much, I would say, in the interest realms of you two gentlemen who do like a young timer.
Yes.
Honda NSX R.
Yeah.
1994. Of course, the NSX. Cool car, kind of found its place in history because it had the fingerprints of Ayrton Senna on it, didn't it? Cool thing.
Helped develop it.
Yeah. What do we make of this? NSX R.
Super cool.
Yeah.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's good colour as
Gran
well.
Turismo was like one of my favourite games when I was a kid, and that car was just so iconic. And the colour, I think, is apparently it's the only one. It's certainly the only one I've seen in that colour. Charlotte Pearl green metallic paint, and it's
NSX number plate.
and it's unusual because it doesn't have the red seats that it normally would have, and it's an unusual colour. And if you've ever driven an NSX, you immediately realise that it's something incredibly special. And you look underneath the car, and all the suspension is cast alloy, and it's just
it's got that usual, that Honda.
it's just a
quality,
very,
isn't it?
very beautifully engineered car, and the R's have rightly so kind of just rocketed in value in the last 5-10 years.
Well, we're estimating 230 to 290, and it's one of 483 first generation NSXRs.
Yeah.
And they and so they were only domestic market.
Yes. So this car came to the UK in '98, and
Right.
the first owner, who we still know actually, went over to Japan, sourced it, brought it back in '98, and it's been here ever since. And I love it. Yeah.
120 kgs lighter than a standard NSX, which is not insignificant.
No.
Also, I think it's the kind of performance of these cars is just all you need on the road. You don't need crazy power. It's 290,
Yeah.
280, 290 brake. It's such an involving driving experience.
Obviously I'm old enough. I was an adult when these cars came out, and I remember at the time, because the Honda range was quite a good-looking range of cars. The Prelude of that era, but I remember at the time thinking, oh, it doesn't look very supercar-y. But actually, that's really the appeal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's not in your face, and it has got that kind of. Because a lot of people today, if they're not car people, won't have a clue what that is.
No.
All of
Subtle.
these years on, and I think that's why I would like to own one.
I love it, and as I say, as a driving experience, they're really up there. The V6 like howls. It revs to over 8,000 RPM. As Felix says, it's all kind of the power. It's all usable power. It's in that perfect bracket of I can extract all of the performance out of this car when I drive it. I don't have to worry that I'm losing my license when I get out of second gear. You know, it's just the perfect sweet spot. And I think that's why this generation of cars, not just for the emotion of our generation wanting to own it, but the actual practicalities of driving it are, I think, superior to a lot of modern machinery that we have today.
Yeah, yeah. So, nice to have that in. We thought we'd single that out because it's a really, and we've had a lot of inquiries on this car, haven't we? That's the thing
Rightly
as well.
so, yeah.
Now, Felix, you say that you don't know anything about any of these cars that we're here to talk about during this live stream. Surely, the 911 Turbo S Lightweight.
Yeah, well, same era, isn't it, actually?
Same era, yeah.
Really, really cool car. This is actually, I mean, it's one of the special cars that we were building at the time because Porsche, you know, had remaining shells.
There it is.
And wanted to make something crazy. They made some really nuts cars in that 964 generation. Carrera 4 Lightweight being a very odd version of what I'm talking about. But Turbo S Lightweight, this is kind of rare within rare because there's 86 of them. They're way lighter than a standard Turbo S, but there's only 19 of these right-hand drive cars.
Interestingly, both, this is, oh no, hang on, that's, yeah, this is even lighter versus a standard.
Yeah.
So the NSX R was 120 kgs lighter than standard NSX. This is 180.
Yeah.
That's two adults.
Yeah, I mean, when you go up to the car, a little telltale is to just give the door a little poke. Not hard, just a little poke, and you literally can see the metal moving. It's so thin. It's just like, oh my goodness.
Rizzler paper.
It's literally Rizzler paper.
It's got a full cage in it.
Yeah.
I mean, properly track focused.
It's a real time warp thing, that, because it's literally covered no mileage.
Yeah.
At all.
Well, it's done, hang on, 81 miles.
And it's never been seen.
81 miles since 1993. Well, I mean, it was probably only delivered by. It probably had 50 miles on it when it was delivered.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of amazing, but it's also kind of sad that cars like this
I mean,
didn't get used.
But this is a perfect example of one of those dilemma cars.
Yeah.
Because somebody, obviously, you're going to pay
a premium
for a car with such low mileage.
Yeah.
And then what do you do with it?
I
mean, you'd love to think that somebody's going to drive the wheels off it, wouldn't you?
I would love to think that. And if I had the money to buy one, that's what I would do.
I'd probably take it to the Nürburgring
Yeah.
and probably make no more than 3 corners and crash it.
What, is it just sort of deliberate move?
No, it wouldn't be deliberate. It would just be a lack of talent.
No, I've never driven one in anger, actually, Turbo S Lightweight, but I'd love to because I think they'd be pretty special.
Yeah, but I also think it'd be quite scary.
I think it's probably quite brutal to drive.
Raw.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, they're very stiff. It's
Really
basically a racing
There's a
car.
picture of me on the screen. We don't.
Yeah, great
no,
thing.
that's a
wonderful
great
example.
thing. But I mean, it's a rare car. 81 miles.
And it's without reserve. So it's, to
It's
see a
without
car
reserve, so we're estimating 700 to 900.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating to see where it ends up. I've got a couple of clients who want to come and see it and are interested. So
You have a cheeky
really
bid on that, Felix. It's no
Yeah.
reserve.
50. Yeah. With terms.
See how you go.
Good luck.
With finance.
Good luck.
Now, this car that we're going to talk about next, the Delahaye 135S works. Now, in fact, sorry everyone, there's a picture of me there, and I'm leaning against it because we did a photo shoot with that car at the Peninsula some weeks ago. So the car's appeared in a lot of our advertising. But there's a reason for that, because this is a very, very special car. Owned. Most of our viewers, if not all, will be familiar with Johnny Walker whiskey, whether they drink it or not. The Walker family. Rob Walker of the Walker family, back in the in the post-war period, was a hugely successful privateer race team owner. Normally his cars are very distinctive, aren't they? Without getting too off topic of the Delahaye, because they're normally a dark blue with a white band over the nose, Ross Brawn famously has the 250 short wheelbase.
Yes.
Very famous Lotus 18 that Moss won the Monaco Grand Prix with, driving for Rob Walker.
Yeah.
So Rob Walker, big deal in the car world. He's owned this, the Walker family, who still own it today, who are selling it with us, have owned that car for almost ever.
Yeah.
But it was driven by Bera pre-war. It did the BRDC 500 kilometre race at Brooklands. It's done Le Mans twice. And get this, 10 years apart, 39 and 49.
They're crazy.
That says a lot about how good it was.
Yeah.
It could still.
Can you imagine
do it.
turning up with, the car that won Le Mans last year?
In 2014.
And then
Yeah.
turning up. Yeah, I mean that's essentially what we're talking about. I mean, not that it won, but it is an amazing car. And the other reason why, so it's done everything. It's done Le Mans.
Yeah.
It's a famous Brooklands racer. It was driven by Bera. It's been in the Walker family. Rob Walker, big name in motorsport. It absolutely ticks every box. It's also a beautiful pre-war car.
Yeah.
Very distinctive, the Delahaye's with the low set headlights and the struts from the radiator cowl down to the front wings and everything. Very, very distinctive cars. Blue, obviously, because it's French. But also, what else? I know you both know. This has been in another video, hasn't it? It's been in another film.
Yes, Jude Law.
Jude Law has driven this car.
Yes, he has.
My wife would buy it,
Yeah.
just on that basis.
I know.
Quite honestly.
But
Fans of the holiday,
yeah.
this is a car for you.
The more interesting element as an ownership proposition for this car is its versatility. It's a racing car, but it's road registered. You can show it, you can race it,
Yep.
you can rally it, you can literally do anything you like at any event in the world.
And
with
that will be invited to
Anywhere.
any invitation anywhere in the world.
And you get that versatility with the pre-war stuff. You don't necessarily get with the sort of post-war racing cars that get a bit harsh and a bit noisy and a bit difficult to actually use.
No, absolutely.
Whereas that you can take it to the pub, or you can take it to Le Mans.
Jude Law drove it from Tuscany to Monaco in that film.
Yeah.
I bet he did every mile of that as
He
well.
probably did.
I've
And
also
back.
driven it. More importantly, to the
Have
car's
you?
provenance.
Oh.
But I can say the engine is a masterpiece. It's incredibly torquey, really responsive engine. I was really surprised at how well it drove, actually.
Really, really good. And in a way, it's kind of almost the thinking man's Bugatti, which sounds like a terrible thing to say, but pre-war Bugattis, if you want a great pre-war French car, the kind of default is a Bugatti.
Yes.
If you've got the money to buy one. Whereas the Delahaye's kind of a bit more left field.
Connoisseur's choice.
A bit more maybe of a connoisseur's choice. I love that car.
Agreed.
And we're estimating that at $1 million to 1.5, which let's be honest, it's a substantial sum of money, but probably for the history,
Is relatively
plenty of cars these days that cost north of £1 million that have absolutely no history whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think it's a relatively good deal at that.
Yeah. It's cheaper than an F40 that's of which there are how many are 1,400 of them. So. Love F40s, by the way. I'm not discouraging anyone from buying an F40. Okay, so now moving on to probably the highlight lot. Well, certainly in value terms. It's behind us. There's a screen over there. There we are. It's on our screen now. XKSS. So what do we have to say about an XKSS? So essentially, the nutshell, the way to put this in a nutshell, it's a road-going D-type Jaguar.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's got everything that a D-Type's got. It's got a D-Type engine. It's a D-Type chassis, essentially. We all know D-Type, bloody fast, won Le Mans.
Yeah.
And this is the car that you can take with some luggage to your villa.
Yeah. Tragically, in '57 there was a fire at the factory, and so only 16 XKSSs rolled out, plus another 2. And now this is one of those 2. The other one is, of course, in Ralph Lauren's collection.
Yes.
So this has actually got a D-type chassis number, not an XKSS chassis number, but it is an XKSS.
If it's good enough for Ralph,
And Ralph,
it's you know,
Ralph has sanctioned it.
he's a discerning man.
But no, this particular car has a really, really interesting history. It was delivered new to Phil Scragg, who was a great racing driver and hill climber here in the UK. It then made its way to Australia for a number of years, then back to the UK, then Germany, and then back to the UK again. So it's got a really interesting history. It's a really pure example. It's the original body, it's all the stampings, all the numbers are there and verified as genuine and original. And it's had a really documented and interesting, fascinating life. And
we know, you know, Ralph Lauren's got one. The Steve McQueen car is in the Peterson Museum in LA.
yeah,
We won't publicise their names, but some of the biggest collectors in the world, with the best collections in the world, have got an XKSS, and they just don't come to market.
no.
That is the thing. I mean, it's, you know, we often talk about cars that, we don't often. Occasionally, we have cars which sort of are a once in a generation opportunity, because
Absolutely.
if you have got £9 or £10 million burning a hole in your pocket, if you don't buy it today, when are you going to buy one?
You're just not going to get the opportunity.
No.
And I was chatting to someone the other day about iconic British cars. Obviously, there's McLaren F1, which is probably the top of the pile in terms of values. But then after that, you've got DB4 GT Zagato, maybe a DB4 GT in some people's eyes. But an XKSS is pretty high up on the all-time best ever British cars.
And it is interesting, because I was talking to a journalist about this. Would an XKSS have the same, would it resonate in the way that it does had McQueen not owned? Because it is, in a way, it was McQueen's ownership and all of the photographs that were taken of him with the car that sort of, over a period of time, absolutely put the car up into people's sort of sphere of consciousness. But
Definitely.
But I mean, the fact that he had one is neither here nor there. I mean, it is. I mean, the interesting thing about it is, I mean, you can actually buy a D-type for less.
Yeah.
But these are more exclusive.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And it's funny because D-type owners used to look down on XKSS owners as a lesser example, and then the market has just sort of done a 180, and now they are almost double the value of a D-type. So yeah, it's just a real privilege to be selling something like this, and we don't get the opportunity to do that and say that very often.
And it's got the Chris Harris seal of approval, obviously.
Indeed, obviously.
He stole it.
Yeah.
For the night.
For a night. And gave it back in the morning.
Bought it back.
Yeah, good video.
We put new tyres on it.
Great video.
So now, gents, we're just going to take a quick break from our conversation because, I have to do this, Johnny, the podcast producer, if I don't plug the podcast, I get in trouble. I get in a lot of trouble, and nobody wants to be in trouble with Johnny. So what I'm going to say, I'm going to look into the camera over here. Series 4 of RM Sotheby's Car Show is back on air. You can download it wherever you get your podcasts, so Spotify, Apple. There are going to be others, and I can't remember all the places you can get a podcast from. And you can also watch it on our YouTube channel. If you go to our YouTube channel, there's a dedicated tab for the podcast, and you can watch it. You normally, I mean, the benefit of watching it, obviously, is that a lot of the time people get to see you two, don't they?
I don't know if that's a benefit.
It's how we bring in the ladies to the podcast.
I don't think that's a benefit.
And there is a preview of the next podcast out on Monday. So I've done my bit.
Well done, Peter.
Well done.
Johnny will be delighted.
I've plugged
True
the
collector is someone that keeps everything, doesn't sell anything.
Yeah. If I think that something's worth more than £5, I sell it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
Routinely.
Yeah. Your jeans, for example.
Yeah. I mean, these jeans are going on. They're going on Vinted tonight.
We have I was going to say a load of collections. We have a huge amount of collections.
You can. There's a track record of swearing on this.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So you're all right with it.
We have a load of collections that we are selling in 2025.
There you go.
There you go. That was
Yeah.
the trailer.
Yeah.
You and me, Will, on a boat
Mega.
in the sun. Do you remember what the sun looked like?
No, I don't actually.
With
Sorry.
with a glass of rosé. I think.
In this country, yeah.
Yeah. There are benefits to doing the podcast, you know.
Yeah, very much so.
I mean, you didn't pay for that wine.
I don't think I
No,
do.
it's come out of the marketing budget.
Oh.
Have you know? So, now, Ferrari Testarossa. Go on, you want to talk about this?
No, I don't, because I've talked a lot about it, and actually the man sitting to my left knows Nigel Mansell quite well, so I think he should talk about it.
Well, I mean,
Our Nige.
our Nige. It was his Testarossa from his second season at Ferrari, so it's a bit like owning an Alonso road Ferrari or a Schumacher owned Ferrari. It's a really cool name to have attached to your Testarossa.
It's going to have carried quite a lot of golf clubs, isn't it?
a lot of golf clubs and a moustache comb. But it's just a really cool thing. I mean, Testarossas, there's always someone for a Testarossa. Really nice thing. I think the main lure of this car is it was delivered new to a F1 world champion who drove for Ferrari at the time.
So he did it, his first season with Ferrari was 1989, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, going back to when we sold his cars,
Yep.
we had an 89
Yeah.
Grand Prix car, which went for a sizable sum of money. So this was his second year. And in fact, he left Ferrari at the end of the 1990 season, didn't
Yes, he did, and then back to Williams.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. But he was loved by the Italians.
Il Leone, they call
Il Leone. He grabbed the car by the scruff of the neck and chucked it round.
Well, so he won his first ever race for Ferrari.
Yes, in the
Yeah.
car that we sold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That never happens, does
No.
it?
No.
That never happens.
Yeah, and that was a nightmare because it was the first ever semi-automatic gearbox in Formula One, and it was incredibly unreliable.
He was brilliant though, wasn't he? Like when we were selling his cars, he was the first one to arrive. He would stand next to the car all day and talk to anyone and everyone that wanted to have a discussion with him about the car. He's like the consummate salesman almost, and he was brilliant for promotion.
Yeah, and he, I mean, Felix and I went to his place a few times over on Jersey where he had his museum and everything, and everyone knows because we sold most of it.
Yeah.
But he had kept everything.
Yeah.
Every cap, every sticker, every ashtray, anything that anyone had ever given him, he'd kept it all.
Yeah.
Including the cars, but he didn't keep that. So
I think he had it for about a year.
Yeah.
But his name's in the service book, his signature's in the service book. I mean, the provenance doesn't get better.
They're sort of having their time in the sun, Testarossas, aren't they? Because I think that it was a lot of people in the 80s when it came launched. I think a few people, because it replaced the Boxer, which was a very different looking car.
Yes.
That is so 80s.
Yes.
It's like, it might as well have, Duran written on it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people struggled a little bit with the styling, I think, when it launched.
Yes.
And it's like one of those, it's absolutely come into its own.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really cool thing.
Yeah, they are
Super
cool.
iconic.
So anyway, we thought we'd give that a mention
Very
because
cool.
it is Nigel Mansell's company car,
Yep.
essentially. We're nearly done, ladies and gentlemen. We've got 2 more lots. Now, I've singled this out only because it's just an unusual thing. 1978, Land Rover Series 3 Royal Review.
Mm-hmm.
So what I like about this, so this was built, there it is, it's on the screen. It's typical of those royal, or what we sometimes call Pope-mobiles, cars that get built for parading around a city centre where people can stand in the back. So it's got a huge perspex screen. It's obviously got flags on it. It's trimmed in leather. It's even got sort of nice carpet in it, which you never find in a Land Rover. I've got a Series 3. And
It is a replica though. It's not.
It was. Well, I thought I thought it was built for her, but wasn't actually used.
No, unfortunately not.
Okay.
We have been corrected on that.
Okay.
Which, get mistakes. And
Good to know before, though.
It's always. I mean, yes, you don't want to know after you've sold it.
No.
But it's a really faithful and genuinely lovely, interesting car. And to the Land Rover collector, it's
But that's
great.
It's a good way of taking the family to the pub, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm not
you-
sure the screen's
Regal,
necessary.
regal.
but-
I'd have my grandmother standing in the back waving
Yeah.
to people with you know, a nice hat.
Terrified, saying slow down.
With an
Oh yeah, you are a bit of a consummate Land Rover specialist. these days,
well,
aren't
you know, I do like a Series 3.
Yeah.
I'd buy a couple of corgis. There's a Tassinger champagne bucket in it. See that? Oh, you just missed it. There's a panel on the back
Yeah.
saying slow, stop, big buttons, slow, stop,
Oh, nice.
start. And when you press one of those,
Yeah.
it illuminates a
driver.
corresponding
Yeah.
light for the driver.
Yeah.
So if you want, let's say you're driving it to the pub, and you see somebody, you know that you want to wave at slower,
Yes.
you just press the button.
Or someone's fallen out the back of it.
Or if Felix has fallen out the
Felix
back,
on the way
On the way
home.
home, Felix can go, stop.
Stop. Or just hold go.
Anyway, I like it. In
Yeah,
fact,
it's
we've got
cool.
we from the same collection. We've got a Series 1, so you can just see it in the VT there. There's a Series 1 which was restored by Land Rover
Yeah.
to the nth degree.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
£100,000 if you want probably the best Series 1 in the world. So anyway, that's that. And we don't often sell motorcycles.
No.
Got a couple here.
Yeah.
But we do have a very nice 1936 Brough Superior.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert on Brough Superiors, but they are essentially the Rolls-Royce of pre-war motorcycles, aren't they?
They are. They've got a very special place in the motorcycle community. They're very rare.
Look
They're
at that.
loved, universally loved.
What a magnificent looking machine that is.
They were beautifully engineered, and it's testament to their quality that so many of them are still running and being driven and used today. There are a number of very, very, very good specialists out there in the UK here, maintaining them, looking
Look at
after
that,
them,
look at that.
preserving them. And of course, it was made famous by Lawrence of Arabia, of course.
Who did? He had a couple, didn't he? Two or
Yeah.
three Broughs, and of course lost his life on one,
Yeah.
which I know is not necessarily the best advert for selling a motorcycle.
No, but he probably was having a good time when.
I think he was probably having a very good time, and of course, back in those days, was probably driving on a Dorset country lane wide enough for two horses
Yes.
without a crash helmet.
Yes.
And of course, more to the point, they're good for 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And
Which is
honestly,
extraordinary.
100 miles an hour on that
Yeah.
would be truly
Yeah,
terrifying.
terrifying. Yeah.
Bearing in mind that in the day, nobody actually was wearing a crash helmet.
No.
100 miles an hour on that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they used to race them at Brooklands, of course.
Yeah.
They won multiple gold stars, averaging over 100 miles an hour round the Brooklands track. Yeah, they're just an amazing, amazing piece of British engineering, and we're very, very lucky to have one in the sale because they really don't come up very often. This was 102 examples with the matchless engine in it.
Yep.
That's it, 102 built. So,
Yep.
really special and unusual and highly collectible piece.
And of course, there aren't too many motorcycles in the world that are, that you're going to pay over £200,000 for.
No.
And Broughs are.
They're one of those.
And I'm not even sure. I don't think with pre-war bikes. I mean, you might when you get into sort of post-war Grand Prix machines.
Yes.
You can find some very expensive bikes.
Yes.
But I don't think that other than a Brough, you're not going to pay. There's no more valuable pre-war motorcycle.
No,
I guess is what I'm trying to say.
They are the creme de la creme.
Yeah, no, beautiful. Well, and there are so many more cars, and the auction starts today.
Yes.
At what time?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. We've got some memorabilia. We've got some great Graham Hill memorabilia.
Yes, a few trophies.
Trophies.
Stuff like that. And then we kick off into the veterans.
Yeah.
Then the cars.
And then the cars. And of course, as with any auction, you can bid online. You can stream live. You can bid live online. You can bid by phone. You can place a commission bid, or you can come all the way to the Peninsula here at Hyde Park, sit in the room and watch it unfold. Oh, sorry. Maybe not the Land Rover, and have a bid in the room. Or if you just want to watch it because you're interested, there are two live feeds. There's one for bidding, and there's another one that you can just watch for fun. 3 o'clock. See you there. Bye-bye.